I've gotten several requests over on Instagram wanting to see a closer look into our pantry. And I know I've showed you guys multiple times here on my YouTube channel, but I've never walked you guys through all of the details of where we store everything and just how we store it. And it is storming here today really bad, so if you hear like rattling and just rain, it's pouring the rain and the wind is blowing really bad, so hopefully that is not too annoying. But I thought I would walk you guys through our storage, and since we don't have a big pantry, give you maybe some ideas if you live in a smaller house or a small apartment that doesn't have a large pantry, because we plan on building a bigger pantry hopefully this year. But as for now, we are using storage cabinets like this as well as our pantry. So I'll just walk you guys through everything and show you how we store everything. This is just a vintage hutch, and I think it's actually a pie safe on the bottom half, but we don't use it as that. I'm just going to start from left to right and tell you guys what everything is. Over here is butter, and I know that butter is not a USDA recommended way of canning, but I do participate in some Rebel canning. I've been canning since I was 19. I'm 25 now, so about 7 years. And I feel comfortable doing it, and I've never had a problem. Every time I open one up, it's completely fine, and I've never had an issue. But that is butter. There's blueberry jelly and grape jelly, jalapenos, and they're not pickled. They're just like regular jalapenos. There's ketchup. This is marinara sauce. Salsa, honey, and I think there's more blackberries back in there. And then this is just regular blackberries in syrup. Lard, which this is not our lard. I buy it in bulk from the Amish in these huge, it just comes in a huge square, and they just cut you off however much you want. And they make the lard, and I buy it from them just because we actually took our pigs off to be butchered today, so we'll be getting the fat from them, but we do not do our own lard yet. Hopefully we can soon. But this I just bought from them, and then I melt down, put it in the jars, and it's shelf stable. You don't even have to process it. I just let it self-seal, and it's completely fine. And then carrots, regular corn, pickled corn, dill pickles, bread and butter pickles. At the end of this, I will put in a list, because I know a lot of you guys wanted to see a list of how much of everything that we have. And some of this may not be up on the blog until next week, but I do plan on making a printout that you guys can have for free. And that way you can track, because that is what I plan on doing this year. I'm going to keep track of everything that I do can this year. That way I can use it in future years to know how much I need to can to get us through, if that makes sense. And I also want to create a free printout that me and you, whoever wants to print it off and use it, can keep track of what they have in their cupboards or cabinets, whatever you want to call it. And that way you know exactly what you need more of and when you're out of it, so that you can restock when you need to. Because I try and keep a running list in my phone, but it is not accurate at all. And we are out of quite a few things. We were out of kidney beans, so I just canned some of those yesterday and put those up. And I know that we need strawberry jelly, but that'll of course not be until spring. So I ended up making a canning inventory list, and this is going to be a free printable on my blog for you guys. But this is what it looks like. I just wrote current up there, but it'll just say, here's an empty one. So it'll just say canning inventory. And then this is what it'll look like whenever you print it out. Has a notes section at the bottom, and then it just says date, canned product, quantity. And then I did include half gallon, quart, pint, and half pint. I know you're not like technically supposed to can in half pint or half gallon, but I did go ahead and put that on there just because in case you want to do it like I'm using this. And I'm using this for all of my vacuum can products also. And I do can a lot in my half gallons for vacuum canning. So I did include that on here. Because even though things like my flour, sugar, stuff like that doesn't go in my canner, I still consider that a canning method, even though it is just vacuum canning. So I do include it in this inventory list. I made it exactly what I wanted and what I needed. So hopefully other canners will like this list also. I didn't include the date just because this is what my current pantry has, and it will need to be used within the next like 6 to 8 months. So crushed tomatoes, we have 17 of those, and all of them are quart, so I just put a check mark under the quart column. But then green beans, I didn't put a quantity because I have 21 quart and 13 pint. So instead of just putting the quantity there, I just broke it up, if that makes sense. And then down here I have 15 quarts of vegetable base, so I just put the check mark on quart to show that they are all 15 quart. I hope that makes sense. And then hot kraut, of course, I have 16 quart and 5 pint. And so I write the number out in the column instead of putting it in the quantity list. I hope that makes sense, and hopefully it'll make it a little bit easy for you guys to know what's exactly in your pantry. Down here on this shelf, all of this stuff is vacuum canned, and I do have a video already up on YouTube on how I do my vacuum canning, and it's super simple. It just removes the air from the jar. So this right here is, these are just homemade noodles that I made myself. These are like egg noodles or fettuccine noodles, whatever you want to call them. This is just a regular like angel hair pasta, and then these are lasagna noodles that I made. And as you can see, they're still completely sealed, and there's no mold or anything. They're doing just fine. But I did those, and I did these back in September, and they are looking perfectly fine. And I just hung them up to dry and then put them in here and vacuum sealed them. I know a lot of people are very, very unsure and like scared of canning, but you just have to jump in. You can't be afraid of it, and there are tons of tutorials out there on how to can. I have some on my channel. If you don't like mine, you can go to somebody else's. I have so many tutorials out there. Like, there's no reason that you cannot can. This is cocoa powder. This is just rice. Most of this stuff I use as we go. So this is not even vacuum sealed. It just has a ring on it, and I just store it in here. So this is cocoa powder. There's rice. We do keep, this is buttermilk. It's powdered buttermilk. I do keep this on hand, as well as there is some regular powdered milk back here. I just use that in case of like emergency. And this is some rice. I'm not sure if I said that, but this is the Redmond real salt. We keep that in the mason jar, just right there. And then over here, there's one iodized salt back in there, because I do use iodized salt in my baking, and then this is canning salt. So sometimes I do use my Redmond real salt in canning, but it does turn your food a little bit pinkish sometimes, so that's why I also keep the regular canning salt on hand. But that is it for in here, and I know some people are not a fan of stacking on top of the layers, but in some situations you absolutely have to, and we had to because we were completely out of room and I needed the space. So I put cardboard in between here just to keep them off of each other, but I do still check for mold, check for color, and check for smell whenever I open, and just make sure that the lid is sealed. But where these are sitting on top of each other, it can sometimes create a false seal. So just always double check your jars. Down here on the bottom, it's also just glass doors. And down here, all of this is vacuum canned, except for one of these oats came unsealed, so I just put a ring on it. But there's oats, sugar, flour, and I have several different kinds of flour. So this is just regular, so this is organic bread flour. There's more sugar. And then there is all-purpose organic flour and whole wheat organic flour down here. So we buy it in 50-pound bags, we freeze it, and then after it comes back up to room temperature, then we will put it in these jars and vacuum can it. So many people are concerned with light and storing food in a cabinet like this. If you're concerned with that, you can always put like sheets or something over the doors, and I've just kind of overcome that. At our old house, I would always try and keep out all the light, and whenever we moved here, I tried, but there's light that's gonna hit the food, and as long as you keep an eye on it and you don't, like, it's gonna lose nutritional value. That is like the bottom line. The sunlight can make it lose nutritional value and its color over time. And also, if it's getting a lot of direct light, then it can bring the temperature up. And as you know, like if the temperature gets brought up and then falls again, it can cause the jars to unseal. So just keep an eye on that. Like, don't store it in a really hot or really cold place. You want them to stay as close to the same temperature year round as possible. So in here in our kitchen, it's our best bet right now, just because we previously had our canned food in the basement last year. We lost a ton of it because the basement is not climate controlled. But our house is climate controlled up here on the main level, so that is why we had to move all of our food up here. But a lot of people don't have a dark place to put their food in, so they just have to put it in a cabinet wherever they can. And like I said, you can cover it with sheets if you're worried about that. But it is recommended that all canned food be eaten within a year of canning it, and I have never had any problems with the sunlight affecting my food. Like, it may turn colors, but that is mostly just for kraut. I've never had anything other than kraut turn color, and it may lose some of its brightness like these carrots, but usually whenever you process any food, it does change color. Like beans, they get darker, pickles, they get darker, like, and then carrots, they lose some of their vibrance and color. Like you can't tell on the camera, but they're a little bit lighter than just like your fresh, just like out of the grocery store carrots or out of the ground carrots. But hopefully you can tell. And then corn, of course, it gets darker in color, but it looks like that directly out of the canner. Like the sun did not do that. It's just how it processes. So I always say, just go with what you're comfortable with. Canning is to each their own, I think. And you truly have to just branch off and do what you feel is comfortable, because so many people will say this is the right thing to do. And they're constantly changing the canning guidelines. Every single year they change them. And I know it used to be a really big thing of stacking your jars on top of each other, but now it's not a big deal. Like they say that you can, as long as it's not like too tall. And it really just depends. So I always say just do what you feel comfortable with for you and your family, and do what you feel is safe. So if you think that storing your canned food in light is not safe, then don't do it. Like I said earlier in the video, we don't really have the most storage space in our pantry. By the time we store our basic groceries, seasonings, things like that, then we really don't have room for our canned food. So we do just have to make room. Up here on top, we have crushed tomatoes, spaghetti sauce, vegetable soup. It's just the base without the hamburger. We have more crushed tomatoes, and these are all in different orders just because like some of this is last year's and some of it is this year's. And I had to pull from our other cabinet and bring it all in here. So we always try and pull from the cabinet that I just showed you or this pantry first. So whenever they get low, then we go to our other pantry that is in our master bedroom down here. It's not a pantry, it's just a cabinet. But we pull from that, and that's how we restock. So that's kind of like our back stock, I guess you could say. But so there are different things in different spaces. It's not very organized. I could do a better job. It does for now. Then we have tomato juice. We have cherry tomatoes that are canned with Italian seasoning and crushed red peppers. We have molasses and salt. And we can't stack double on the top shelf just because there's not enough space. The shelf height, we had to decrease it. But like I said, we do plan on building a bigger pantry. We're just going to knock this back wall down, and it'll be straight through there. So it'll be a nice walk-in pantry, kind of like a butler's pantry. And we're going to make custom shelving all for our canned food. So all of our canned food and stuff like that will then be in. Down here on the bottom shelf, it is double stacked with cardboard in between, like you saw in the other cabinet. But here we have more crushed tomatoes. This is green beans with bacon in it, and then regular green beans. Potatoes, pinto beans, hot sauerkraut. There's baked beans back in that far back corner, regular sauerkraut, pasta sauce, apple pie filling, peaches, and then everything else in here is just our basic pantry stuff. So this is like baking ingredients, oils, syrups, salt and sugar, chocolate chips, things like that. And this is our like grocery section that we buy from the store. We have some popcorn. I do keep some canned things on hand, just that I did not can myself. So just some pasta sauce, but we use it as pizza sauce. We are completely out of all bone broth right now, so I do have some bone broth and just some stuff for like quick easy meals. So there is some pumpkin in there, cream of chicken or cream of chicken soup, peanut butter, and then we do keep like these snacks on hand just for my niece and nephew. Whenever they come over, they always want snacks. Oatmeal, and then this is just our spices. So we do keep them in mason jars, but it is not canned. It is just our regular spices. That's what I store them in. So that is everything in our pantry. I forgot to show these eggs, and there is a mouse trap, so just ignore that. We caught a mouse in here the other day, so we leave them set now. But this is where I store my water glassed eggs, and I have 3 gallons, which there's about 120 eggs there. We actually have not needed to eat any of those yet this year. Hopefully they get eaten. We will have to figure something out just to use them up, because I don't want them to go to waste. But our chickens are still laying. They have not slowed down at all. The only other canning things that we keep in here in the kitchen is this canner on top of the fridge. That is the one that I pull down and use on our stove whenever I am canning in here in the kitchen, because most of our summer cooking or summer canning gets done outside on our front porch on a double like campfire burner grill thing. So that is what, it's propane. That is what we normally do our canning on. But in these winter months, I do keep a canner in here. And just for quick batches of canning, I'll do it in here on the stove. In the bottom drawer of this hutch, I do keep all of my jar lifters, magnets, things like that. These are regular mouth rings, wide mouth rings, and then lids and more lids. So we try and keep it just basic in here, but that is all the canning, and that just stays in this bottom drawer of this island hutch. The rest of our canning supplies and food storage is kept in here in our master bedroom, what will be someday our master bedroom. For now, it is just storage. We keep our stuff for the downstairs bathroom in here. There's some jars over there. But we did put up these curtains, it's just trash bags, because we did have food setting out in here, but we have used so much of it that now all of it fits in our cabinets. But earlier on this winter, whenever I was just finished with canning season, we had food sitting everywhere in here. So I finally got all of it switched over into the kitchen. So now we don't really need these trash bags anymore, but it does make it dark in here. And in these 5-gallon buckets, we do keep some food. We keep some pasta and some beans, and that's about it. We have some life straws in there for just in case, you know, and those on the bottom are empty. We keep those as just extra. But over here is where we keep all of our empty jars that we have. So these have all been used before, and we keep our new jars down in the basement. So we do have a lot of jars down in the basement that are brand new. They've never been used. And these are our jars that we have used and emptied, and they get cleaned and put back in here to be used again. Hopefully that makes sense. But this is where we store our empty jars. We keep all of our empty flats to put our jars back into. And then this cabinet is where we keep all of our canned food, and as you can tell, we don't really have much at all. We have eaten a lot of it this winter. Up here on top, we have some pints of green beans, hot kraut, 1 pint of dill pickles, blackberry jam. These are the kidney beans I canned just the other day. We have some of those tomatoes that couldn't fit in the pantry. This is grape juice. It will usually always stay in here just because I only can grape juice to make grape jelly later on. So that's why we keep grape juice. It's not like we drink it or anything. And then we have pinto beans, more potatoes. This is all of our kraut, and there is some hot kraut. So these 2 rows are hot kraut, regular kraut, and then pickled corn. So that is all of our canned food. And all of this was full. If you saw my videos from earlier in the summer, this cabinet was packed full, and we ended up running out of storage, and we got another cabinet, but now they're both empty, and we have used a lot of our food. So I know some people think that you can can and you just don't end up eating it, but we do. We can for convenience. I love the convenience of it. I can open up these jars and have a meal ready to go in about 10 minutes. So that's why I enjoy canning so much. So down here on the bottom is where I keep some grocery store products that we bought it was actually last spring before our tomatoes came on. I bought quite a few of tomato products, and we'll save these for later. So we will actually use my canned tomato products before we'll use these, simply because these last until, like, some of them even said 2026, but 2025 on most of them. And then we have some corn back in there. And then this jar of pickles I canned. There's apple cider vinegar in this compartment. There's spring water, because I do use spring water for all of my pickled things. And then vinegar. And there is some extra food in here also. Just some beans, pasta, tea, greens, and pineapples and peaches, just because we never can enough of those. We don't ever get enough fruit and can it, so I do keep some of that on hand. But it mostly just stays in here because we don't eat it very often, and we'll eat what's in our pantry first. This is not canning stuff. As you can see, we have some first aid stuff, toilet paper and stuff, batteries, medical stuff, candles, matches, and lighters. We have some oil lamps in case the power goes out. These are just extra jars that, they're like canisters that I come and get every once in a while for my pantry stuff. This is where we keep some extra rings. We just keep them on this twine and hang there because we have so many. Wide mouth lids, regular mouth lids. This is where I keep my canner parts. Extra racks for my canners, and then petroleum jelly just for my all-American canners. And then, of course, my bigger stainless steel pots and bowls. just because they're so big, they're hard to store in our kitchen. So they will eventually be stored in our pantry along with literally all of the rest of this. This will all be stored in our pantry someday. Hopefully we can get it done this year. I'm hoping so. Up here, we just keep some, I bought these on sale, and it's just the lids and rings, and I just use those as backup. There's 2 canners up there. I'm not sure if you can see the other one, but we try and just keep it as organized as possible. And I know not everybody has just extra space in their house to put everything, but we just kind of make do. We just don't really care right now. I mean, this is meant to be a bedroom, and we just keep our tools and the bathroom parts and stuff in here for whenever we get to work on our downstairs bathroom. And we have our makeshift pantry in here for now. So we just make do, and I think that is just all part of it. And the reality is there's just not enough storage space in our kitchen for all of this. So like I said, the new jars, they'll probably always be stored down in the basement just because they don't need to be room temperature or anything. But these I like to keep up here just because they stay cleaner where they are opened already. And I like to just pull from my old jars and use those before I use my new ones. But that is it. I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I will include everything down below. But that is going to be it. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys will like and subscribe.